So despite the fact that Avatar is one of the most beloved TV shows ever made, there are some major plot points that never really got explained within it. Some areas where it was just kinda left up to us to figure out what is or what was the reason why. Such as why AZULA is the only character with blue flames in the entire series. Why that is the case, well, we'll come back to that in just a bit. First, let me explain why this isn't actually a bad thing. Because in the light of the lack of information that was given to us, the fans took it upon themselves to theorize what the truth actually is. And while some of these theories are well thought out and come with indisputable proof, there have been some not so great theories that came alongside them. Like the theory that Toph and Sokka have a secret love child out there somewhere, which is one of the less believable ones that I was able to dig up, but even that came with some level of proof within it. So today I thought it'd be fun to completely discuss and explain some of the more popular theories that have ever been made. So without wasting any more of your time, let's dive right into it, with the first theory being potentially one of the most widely known and believed ones of all. It's the theory that the cute childhood crush of many, Ty Lee, is actually an air nomad. This is one that honestly I've always believed and still do to this day. It's just got so much info backing it that it's incredibly hard to deny the possibility. The theory goes like this for anyone who hasn't heard it. The annihilation of the air nomads never made much sense to begin with, because although it has been stated that the air nomads all gathered to discuss the impending war and Suzlin's comet, the fact that we're supposed to believe this was every nomad on Earth is just a foolish statement to make. Because the air nomads in essence are a culture of individuals who travel the world and help villages and towns. They aren't commonly known for sitting around and doing nothing, nor are they known for massive gatherings. Now it should be noted that this did briefly get resolved in one of the Avatar comics called Relics. This comic took place in season 1 and had Shao lure Aang into a cave using the air nomad relics as a trap. He then explains that after the initial annihilation of the air nomad temples, these type of traps were set up around the world to catch any survivors. This trick was incredibly effective and led the Fire Nation and even the rest of the world into believing the air nomads were gone, and airbending was no more. But given how elusive the airbenders actually are, it's incredibly hard to picture that even while trapped in a cave, that they'd actually be wiped out. And not to mention that the firebenders aren't all that good at actually killing the ones they are sent to kill. Like just look at Azula, the scariest firebender of all in my opinion, never kills anyone in the series. In fact, she's actually just a bit of a softie if you really think about it. Now it should also be noted that this theory isn't claiming Ty Lee and her family to be airbenders. Yes, they may have had the potential to learn it if them being from a long line of air nomads was proven true, but because there was no airbenders alive and the teachings were likely lost or destroyed in the raid, it would have been next to impossible for them to have been taught anything about it. Not to mention they were technically in hiding, so they wouldn't really have tried to learn it. Now realistically, the likelihood of one or potentially even hundreds of air nomads surviving the complete purge is incredibly high when you consider the fact that Ba Sing Se had never been invaded, meaning if Ty Lee's ancestor was living there at the time of the war's beginning, well then the likelihood of them surviving would have been quite high, right? The theory then dives into how she looks nothing like the people from the Fire Nation, with her hair not being black and her eyes not being the copper coloring. Now yes, she is identical to Aang in almost every way, with the only exception being that she is just the female version of him. But this is a cartoon. This honestly could have just been nothing more than the artist's drawing style. So I don't put a lot of stock in this one, but it's part of the theory, so I should mention it in this video even just briefly. Now the theory then goes on to highlight that upon meeting Ty Lee, we find that she is part of a traveling circus. And if you were somehow unaware, the circus is widely considered a nomadic lifestyle, which would suit her perfectly if she stems from a long line of nomads. She is also incredibly spiritual, as proven by the fact that she mentions a couple of times in the series that she can sense someone's aura. Now yes, Iroh was also quite spiritual, and of course he didn't stem from the air nomads. But the fact is, he is an incredible exception in almost every way, because aside from him and Ty Lee, no one in the Fire Nation is any bit connected to the spirit world, like at all. And then we must consider the fact that she is incredibly skilled at quick maneuvering and chi blocking, skills that most definitely were not taught to her in the Fire Academy for girls. So where could she have learned such a technique? Well, it would have been her family. These moves were likely passed down in her family for generations and likely lead all the way back to the air nomads. So yeah, Ty Lee comes from a long line of air nomads. She just likely doesn't know about it. Moving on, did you know Aang has a son? No, not these two. I'm talking about a secret firstborn by the name of Zaheer. Yes, that's Zaheer. You see, this theory goes like this. After the harmonic convergence, Zaheer was given airbending and was instantly incredibly good at it. Like honestly, he looked better than Tenzin in that moment, which makes no sense unless he had prior training in the art. Which ties us to the potential possibility that he was trained by an airbending master, and given that growing up Aang would have been the only airbender around, it would have had to have been him. But not only was Zaheer a gifted airbender, but he was also incredibly knowledgeable about air nomad culture. He knew things that only the monks could have known. So the theory explains it like this. Aang, after having Zaheer, kept him a secret so as to protect him from the outside world, given that he was the first airbender born into the world in over 100 years. He would then go on to force him to learn everything about the air nomads. And as we know, when forcing someone to learn something, two possibilities tend to happen. They either grow to hate the subject and completely reject it, or they become completely obsessed with it and want to learn everything about it. Zaheer would fall into the latter category. He would go on to idolize Gur Lahima and his quotes, and if you've ever read them, then you know they are very much open to interpretation. Zaheer would read and live his life based off of these quotes, and more often than not, he would misinterpret the meaning behind them, which according to this theory led him down a very dark path. You see, the air nomads are pacifists and only use their air bending to help those in need, but Zaheer would see his bending as a weapon to be used against those around him. So the theory explains that after witnessing this, Aang took it upon himself to remove his son's bending, resulting in his banishment. Zaheer would then grow to hate the Avatar, putting together his own team of Avengers to put an end to the Avatar for good. He believed the Avatar power was too much for any one person to possess, and wanted rid of it. The team would become known as the Order of the Red Lotus, and I'm sure you all know what happened with that, so I'm not going to include it in this video. Just know that the theory explains that the offense involving Unalaq and the spirits was all part of Zaheer's plan to get rid of the Avatar cycle for good. So yeah, Zaheer was Aang's secret son and the mastermind behind everything that happened in the Legend of Korra. Moving on, we have a theory on why AZULA is the only firebender to use blue flames. And I don't know about you, but growing up this was always on my mind. Like yeah, she is powerful, crazy, and a total childhood crush of mine. But why the blue? Like she is the only character in Aang and Korra's story to have them, but they are never really explained. At least that was until this random theorist came up with this theory, explaining everything you need to know on why she wields the blue and no one else does. So let's dive right into it. The theory begins that throughout the story we see two dragons of two different colors, one red and one blue. This is seen with the masters Ren and Shaw, who are identified by the color red and blue. And then again in Zuko's dream where we see two dragons, one red and voiced by Iroh, and one blue and voiced by AZULA. But that's not all, as we saw them once again in Roku's flashback, where we see Roku use the red dragon and Sozin uses the blue, making it seem as though red means good guy and blue means bad guy. But is it as simple as, oh Zuko, he's good, give him red, and AZULA, she's bad, give her blue? Well, honestly, maybe. But there's actually a bit more to this theory, so let's keep going. The theory goes on to explain that AZULA as a character is completely obsessed with perfection. This was also seen in one of her very first scenes where she was bending and one hair was put out of place, which angered her more than I think Aang did in the entire series. The theory then goes deep into how her need for perfection stems from her terrible parents. A mother who loved her brother Zuko more than her, and a dad who only loved you if you achieved something for him. She needed perfection because only by being absolutely perfect could she get any affection. But what does this actually mean for her flames? Well, the theory at this point goes very scientific in its explanation, but we don't really have time for all of that, so I'm going to simplify it as best I can. Blue flames are a more complete form of combustion, with less soot within it. It is achieved by using cleaner fuels and better mixing of the oxygen and the fuel. And in even simpler terms, this means that blue flames are a more completely clean and near perfect form of fire. It is hotter and less dirty, meaning AZULA did it. AZULA did what no one has ever done before. She achieved perfection. She has the most perfect form of firebending ever. No Avatar or Fire Lord was able to do this, nor was anyone who came after her. It's just a real shame that this kind of perfection wasn't enough for her in the end. She always needed more. But alas, that's going to do it for this video, explaining some of my favorite Avatar theories. None of these are my own, I take no credit for them. I'm just someone who really enjoys everything Avatar and wanted to bring light on some of the most interesting theories around. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did and you want to see more videos like this, then slap that like and subscribe button down below. But with that, I'm out. Have a great rest of your day, and peace.